What's up, everybody? It's Tom from the Orange Jungle Tree Sheep, and welcome back to another episode of Spiel. I have not made many videos in the past few months with college. Stuff's been pretty busy, but I think I'm going to be getting back to it pretty soon. Anyways, this is my friend and my current roommate, Arthur.
Nice to meet you guys.
And we're going to get into it. So, for our first topic, we're going to talk about anime. So,
all right.
I guess you've got a couple posters up, here in our dorm room.
Yes.
And it seems like you're interested in a variety of stuff. So, how do you describe your interest in anime?
Well, honestly, my interest starting with anime has kind of been a roller coaster. So, mostly the anime I prefer watching is action-based ones that have a lot of fighting, a lot of powers, usually just fantasy stuff like that. So, I can name you, some that I've just genuinely watched to the point where I've rewatched some of them over the past few years.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is Mob Psycho, because ever since that came out, I've actually been that's been one of the series I've been on top of when it just comes out every week to when the second and third season came out. Beautiful, by the way. And just something with that show is it's an example of just how I enjoy watching scenes like that, where it shows the art style, the variety of the things happening, and it just makes you go what the hell is going on? But at the same time, you enjoy it. Let's see. Another show I enjoy, I would say Fire Force. I also have a Fire Force poster in the back, but since I've only have 3 posters to hang up out of the 5 I have, that was one of them. So with Fire Force, it's a very simple anime. It's just a group of firefighters combating fire, but of course it's anime, so you have to make it in a way where it looks really interesting. So the way that Fire Force captures it is that they use a variety of sound effects and also just the art style. Just combine those two together and you have fight scenes that honestly you would probably want to try to search up on YouTube. It's beautiful. It's just amazing. And then, let's see. I could talk about one more, which... honestly, I'll say Steins Gate. Steins Gate is kind of a weird choice because it doesn't really focus on fight scenes, but I'm more interested of the concept of time travel, of how it mentions things.
Yeah.
So at first, how it started, it was just an ordinary show, and it's kind of it's based on some student. He's very smart, and he's kind of just trying to be the next big thing of how does he want to impact the field. So I remember it was one scene where he was working with his friend, and for some reason they microwaved a banana. Yeah. Kind of weird. And then I think right after that, I forgot what happened because it's been a few years, but there was green jelly that appeared, and then next thing you know, that they discovered time travel, and I was like, whoa, what the fuck?
Yeah, I have not watched Steins Gate. I've been meaning to for a long time. I'm definitely interested in time travel and concepts like that and stories that mess with reality. So I've been meaning to. I think in the anime club at my high school, we watched the first 2 episodes, because just meant as an introduction. We switched up what we watched every week.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I've been meaning to watch it. I've heard good things.
It's very good things.
Yeah.
I would say one thing I enjoy about this show is it came out with a second season, and how the second season works is that it's kind of like a what if situation of what would happen after the ending of the first season, which I won't say anything. But it's kind of like a spin-off of what happened, and it's beautiful. Like the way that they have it combined, that both seasons connect. It's genuinely just something that like you just have to do. Well, yeah, that's all I'd probably say about Landscape, though.
All right. Yeah. And yeah, I'd say I think I watch a similar kind of anime to you. You know, a lot of the action, fantasy stuff, a lot of fighting. Are you into Dragon Ball at all, or not really?
Dragon Ball actually was, I think, one of the first animes I've watched, but it was more of me when I was like a little kid, and like whenever we would have like one of those TVs that would like randomly flip on shows, Dragon Ball happened to be one of them. So I do remember I used to watch, I think it was Dragon Ball Z Kai.
Yeah. Okay.
And then just after that, I just haven't. But I have heard interesting stuff about Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things I've heard was it was like back then with like Goku versus Saitama, of like the power scaling of who would be better. And at first I was on the Saitama train, but then after that I realized that both shows, they keep going on and there's like no end, so it's kind of like any of them could win at the same time. So I'm just interested. It's kind of interesting seeing people like go into detail about how one is better, like when they have like spreadsheets on Reddit as to why he would particularly be better in this situation. It's so interesting. But
yeah, the community online of versus battling, of, you know, taking various characters, and you know, it's just a way more intense version of little kids on the playground being like, who would win if they fought each other?
exactly.
I remember the days of elementary school debating with my friends who would win in a fight. We were all Smash fans back then, so we thought if it wasn't, you know, in Smash, if they just met each other randomly, who would win in a fight and stuff like that. But yeah, Dragon Ball has gotten itself a bit of a reputation in that scene, because the way that different characters scale to each other, especially with other characters outside of it, is kind of weird. Because like Dragon Ball, in case you don't know, is a series where, you know, the exact like relative level of power someone has, they always hype it up a bunch.
Yeah.
But when you put it in like an objective setting, it's harder to gauge. So you have people getting into huge arguments about who wins in a fight, like Goku or Superman or Saitama from One Punch Man, like you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been there's been a lot of arguments online, and that honestly sometimes it seems like people online do nothing but argue.
I mean, that's pretty much how it is now, so it's just something that's never really like gone away. But at the same time, it's entertaining to see how it goes down. But I've also heard that I think it's one of the big three of anime. I haven't really remembered, but like there was like a thing that was like big three of animes of like either the decade or like just the year. It was like Bleach, Naruto, and I think
One Piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in the 2000s, you know, as a lot of anime started to gain a huge following, you know, outside of Japan, you know, especially with the internet starting to look less like the early stages of it from like the 90s, you know, and it started to resemble more of what it looks like in the modern day. Anime like Bleach, Naruto, One Piece, Dragon Ball, all the big popular stuff from around that time, you know, it started getting more of a foothold. You know, there's a discussion of like, what are the biggest, most popular anime, and that's where the notion of the big three came from.
Mm-hmm.
I actually found out something kind of interesting. I'd recommend to you and our viewers a YouTube channel called Totally Not Mark, who makes videos on some different anime. He basically did an investigation of, like, where did that term come from? And, like, did it have any real basis in reality? And it turns out that, like, the only time where, like, all three of those, Bleach, Naruto, and One Piece, were, like, the biggest, like, manga in Shonen Jump and, like, the places they were published was, like, really small. Like, the actual amount of time that those three spent being, like, the three most popular was actually really small. I think more so that term came about because those were three really famous anime that all had their big, like, cultural moment around the same time.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, when you investigate, like, the actual trends, it doesn't show quite as, like, huge of a like a bump in activity as you'd expect.
Yeah, but I guess that's kind of how it is.
Yeah. It's like we all have those really distinct memories of, like, the media that was really big to us, from certain points in time. But then you look around to other people, and you can easily find someone who's like, oh, I don't know what that is, or I didn't watch this thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we've all got our own interests, and, like, there's entire spheres of media, anime, TV, movies, books, games, that, like, you just don't know about because it's outside your wheelhouse.
Seriously, it's literally like a vast world where, you can explore pretty much anything. And it's like, of course, there's going to be one person where they're going to be very knowledgeable just for that one thing, but never somebody who will know everything just because there's way too much.
Yeah. It's like I've been looking into just more music stuff recently, trying to expand some of my tastes, and just the amount of artists who I've never heard of before I just randomly come across a song of theirs is staggering.
Any examples?
There's I had a couple that I was thinking about earlier today, but, like, it's not coming to mind. I mean, I just found a random, like, mixed playlist of, like, indie rock songs on YouTube that I was listening to. I got, like, 5 songs in, and I didn't recognize the name of the band.
Interesting. Okay. I guess with my story of music, it took me a while, but I had a conversation with a coworker, I think it was a few months back, where I was playing some music and he recognized it, and I was like, oh, cool, interesting. And then he told me that if I base my music off of just, like, things I do regularly, just, like, play games, watch YouTube, or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, yeah, because I also realized at that moment that pretty much ever since, like, middle school, when I was in, like, that meme arc when there was, like, Nyan Cat and
oh my god,
Raining Tacos and
I remember
Narwhal.
I remember all of those.
Yeah, I was that guy. There was another one where I spent, I think, like a week just... It was like Do the Flop, where that channel...
Oh!
That channel was so gold.
From Asdf Movie.
Asdf Movie?
They came out with Asdf Movie 15.
They're still, like,
a few months
going, which is insane.
Yeah.
I think I saw 14 that came out, and I was like, wait, what? Because I saw the date and I was like, wait, this isn't like 10 years ago?
Nope.
And I was like, wow, that's crazy. And I go into the comments, and the comments are literally saying the same thing of, oh my gosh, this series is still going.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of how I've based my music. And I realized that around middle school to when I reached high school, I listened to a lot of dubstep. Like, I was into Skrillex and what was it, Deadmau 5? All of the dubstep artists because I was just that kid. And then like high school came around and I started listening to like lo-fi, chill hop, but then I was still kind of invested with like EDM or like dubstep. So I discovered the genre EDM, which is kind of like a mix of the both. So kind of just been going on. And I mean, to this day, I still listen to the music I listened to like 10 years ago. So I guess that's kind of how it is.
Yeah, I've discovered a lot of the music I listen to through like various media, like not as much of like the just I should phrase this in a specific way. I've discovered a lot of music through various things. Most of the music I've gotten from like anime and cartoons. I listen to the stuff specifically created for those anime and cartoons. But I've also found some songs and just kinds of music, that got used randomly in like a movie or something. There's Cage the Elephant song called Broken Boy that I actually found from the first season of Invincible. And I've been slowly turning into a Cage the Elephant fan.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard of them, but
there's a couple songs by them you might recognize, that they just got famous over the past decade or so. Okay. Yeah, like stuff from around when we were in middle school and such.
I see.
Yeah. In terms of like anime stuff specifically, I found like there's a decent bit of Dragon Ball music I listen to, it sometimes there's like a decent mix of like just nice peaceful stuff, and then also balls to the walls action, moving at 120 miles per hour, characters beating the crap out of each other.
Of course.
Because that's like the only two moods in Dragon Ball. It's either you're not fighting someone or you're fighting someone.
I see.
Yeah.
I mean, I would kind of say it's genuinely most of the shows I've watched, and honestly, I enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah. You've got a Dr. Stone poster right there. That
yeah.
I'm wondering, like, what do you think of that series in particular? Dr. Stone's a big one from the past couple of years for anybody who doesn't know.
It has. I think Dr. Stone came out my junior year, and that was the time I was taking chemistry. So I found out when I was watching Dr. Stone where some of the stuff that happened kind of applied to what we were doing with like some of the experiments. I found it awesome. It was so enjoyable. Like, I remember, let me see, it's been like, I think like 5 years now since I've watched Dr. Stone. I think, I don't mean to spoil, but there was one part where they were creating a certain device, since they were trying to, like, I guess, evolve evolution, like, within, like, a span of, like, a few months. And I found that, like, with the main character's plan of what he was trying to do and how he was doing it, like, it was insane. Because the main character, he's pretty much, like, the anime version of Einstein, if you could say, where he has everything. Like, he's just that generic, like, super smart character.
Yeah.
He knows everything. He will calculate every single outcome, every single, like, explanation. It's crazy.
Yeah. For any viewers out there who might not know, the basic premise of Dr. Stone is humanity one day, I forget if it's randomly or if there's a specific cause, but people start turning to stone, being petrified, and, basically civilization essentially just time stops, Of course, time still passes, so, like, nature starts, growing and taking over structures and stuff.
And it starts, like, breaking down to new ones.
Yeah, and basically, like, 200-something years later, a super smart teenager, who happened to be, one of the people turned to stone, just randomly wakes up, and basically he's like, okay, we're gonna rebuild civilization, and I'm gonna use my big smart brain to figure out how to free people from being turned to stone.
There was one part that I found so hilarious. I think it was while the time he was basically stone, he was counting to the point of where, like, he knew exactly what year it was, what time it was, what hours, because he was counting within seconds.
Yeah, so he was still conscious.
So basically, immediately when he got stoned, his first initial thought was just to count. And then the fact that he kept it up within the time, like, which was like, what, like 200 years?
Yeah,
like
I think it's around 200 years. Something like that.
It's insane.
Yeah. Wait, how many seconds is that? I need to Google this. How many seconds is 200 years?
Oh my god.
Okay. Google, please don't fail me. How many seconds in 200 years? Let's see. What number is that? 6,311,000,000. Oh wait, no. Or is that 6 billion? I can't tell. Oh yeah, 6,311,520,000 seconds.
6 billion.
Over 6 billion seconds.
Pretty much counting to 6 billion within that time. Like, like anybody within that situation would, first of all, be absolutely terrified.
Yeah.
And then, as time is going on while you're conscious, it's like, you would be thinking of so many things right now. But the last thing on your mind would just be counting and, like, thinking, oh, it's this time right now, or it's nighttime, or... It's insane. His dedication is absolutely just fucking brilliant.
There's stuff like that you can do in anime that you can... Like, you can do that in other forms, but, like, the crazy stuff that gets made in that way is like, the most anime thing ever.
They take it, like, way to the extreme, to the point where it's just so stupid. It's enjoyable at the same time, too.
Yeah.
But
What would you say, like... What would you say, you like the most about anime in comparison to, like, American cartoons?
I would say two things that came into mind. One would be the voice actors. When with anime, honestly, but sometimes I used to stick with, like, either a dub or sub. I know there's, like, a debate that's like which one is better.
Yeah.
But I guess it just depends within, like, certain situations. But usually when, like, shows that come out, I immediately start watching it sub because it takes time for it to come out dub. And some of the voice actors that, like, portray, like, the emotions for, like, certain characters, it's just so beautiful, like, just compared to, like, certain cartoons you would watch. And then also another part is the actual animation, like, with, like, the cartoon art styles. One of them, which I, like, enjoyed a lot, was what was it, Chainsaw Man?
Oh, yes.
the way that they portray like the intro, the fight scenes, like like the main character's transformations, it's just fucking beautiful. And
Yeah.
I haven't read the manga, but like I can imagine like the art style is like similar, if not even better. Like, and it's just so, it's mind blowing just to see how you can like see stuff like that within like anime, whereas cartoons it's kind of simplistic, but at the same time, it's something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those are the strengths of anime. Really come through like the slight differences in production. Like when you take a big swing, and it pays off, you can make some really impressive stuff. If I'm being honest.
Okay.
You mentioned Chainsaw Man. It's a popular anime from the past few years.
Yes.
I'd also recommend Jujutsu Kaisen. That's
Absolutely.
another one I've been watching. It's both of those are like, big popular like action anime.
Mm-hmm.
People who are fans of stuff like Bleach, Naruto, One Piece, Dragon Ball, from the older generation of anime, that is like the kind of modern stuff that's similar to that, that carries over that same kind of vibe, of an expansive world, tons of characters, lots of cool powers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Although anime is also a lot like comics, where like basically like so many genres have been done in it, like especially in Japan, like slice of life and like comedy anime are both really popular in Japan, a little bit less so in America. But if there's something you're looking for, if you're looking for like a new kind of entertainment to go and find, just look up some like what are some good recent anime, and you can find some stuff. Chances are you'll be able to find something.
And the fact that they have like different genres of what type of anime you like, it's like a wide spectrum where you can just search endlessly.
Yeah. If there's two recommendations I'd throw out in terms of my personal taste in anime, one, it's called Erased. It's
oh, Erased! I love Erased.
Yeah, it's a pretty somewhat simple kind of time travel mystery story, basically about a guy wakes up in the body of his younger self, and has to solve a mystery. I won't say more about it than that. And in terms of something else, let's see. I'm trying to remember. What was the name of it? I'm trying to remember the name of this anime. I remember. Something you may not expect of me, being kind of, I'm a nerd, I'm into a lot of action stuff. I watched an anime called Violet Evergarden. Have you heard of that?
I have heard of Violet Evergarden.
Yeah, it's about a woman who was, a soldier, and basically she has her arms replaced with, mechanical ones. She's basically learning to navigate life after being in a war. It's not an action-related thing. It's a more low-key story with a lot of emotional beats. It's about a person learning to adapt to life not in a war, which is like, stories like that can be really gripping when they're done well. And
They really can.
Yeah, and Violet Evergarden is definitely an example of that. So, yeah.
I see. Okay.
All right. Do you have anything? I think in terms of timing, we're reaching a good point. Do you have any other, thoughts you want to give in terms of anime, our first topic, before we move on?
Well, I guess what I'd have to say is, as we said, there's a wide spectrum of animes, and I would definitely say one to check out or just like a certain genre is, I would say, slice of life, because the way how you switch out from action based and powers just like a casual slice of life where, you know, it's somewhat relatable to like how the plots like interact with each other. It's honestly very enjoyable just to see stuff like that. But yeah, I guess that would be my point for anime.
All right. Okay. Then we're moving on to our second topic, which is specifically nostalgic media or childhood media.
Nostalgic media?
Yeah, in terms of, let's see, like one example I'm thinking of, well, separate from that, but you're wearing an Adventure Time shirt.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Adventure Time was one, probably top 3 of like just my cartoon childhood show where I would just watch it just every single day. Where I loved the interaction within like the 2 main characters, Jake and Finn, where like the adventures that they go on and then like the lessons that they learn out of it, the people who they meet, and like the connections and like the friendships that they have. It's ones where you find it awesome when you're a kid, and you find it even greater as you grow up and rewatch those shows, because it's something like not only you can relate to, but also you can see how the character grows similar to you.
Yeah, it's like when you're a kid, you know, you can appreciate something because you look up at the screen and you're like, whoa, that's so cool. But then when you're older, you're like, okay, yeah, I can see the writing in this and the stuff that went into this production, and you know, I can appreciate it in a different way.
Exactly.
Yeah. Adventure Time, like other stuff around that time, like I watched a lot of Cartoon Network when I was younger. Regular Show is so good, and I think they're bringing it back. Oh. I think they're making more Regular Show. I don't know though.
What? Oh, I've not heard of this.
Yeah, I think for the past few years it's been in discussion. I know they're also making more Amazing World of Gumball. That is something they're definitely making.
Honestly, it would be very hard, but Gumball and Regular Show, surprisingly, they would fight for which one would be my favorite cartoon show just of all time.
Yeah.
Because with Gumball, Gumball was one of those where it was those shows where it had sprinkled in like adult humor, where when you were a kid you would watch it and be like,
I don't know what that is.
What does that mean? And
yeah.
Okay. And then as you would rewatch it when you're older, you're just like, oh,
that's what that means. Yeah.
And it's great. It's one of those shows where like you enjoy it very much as a kid, and then as you're an adult you enjoy it twice as better, and it's just very good. And if you have friends along with you, it's just, you guys have just like a freaking grandiose like laugh where you can just enjoy how stupid some of the characters are, because every single character within that show is like so freaking lovable, and like they have their own thing going of just you know what they do.
Yeah. I'm thinking about now I'm thinking about examples of stuff I didn't understand as a kid. There's one that always stands out to me. When I was little, I was very interested in Cars, you know, the Pixar movie. There's a scene at the, you know, like in the first part of the movie, you know, after the first race, where 2 of Lightning McQueen's fans, like the two twin fangirls, they come up to him and they flash their headlights at him, like, you know, like their cars, they can do that.
Of course.
But when I was a kid, I just thought, oh, they're cars flashing their headlights, like gesture of support or something. Yeah. But as an adult, I watched that and go like, they're doing a different kind of flashing there. That
I didn't know what flashing was. So like, I remember watching like a YouTube compilation of like dirty jokes in movies.
Yeah.
And that was one of them. And I think I watched this when I was like 15, 16? And at that time I still didn't know what flashing was. So when they showed that, I was like, oh yeah, I remember this. And then they were like, flashing, and I was like, what does that mean? So I searched it up.
Oh!
And I see the actual definition, and I'm just like, oh, that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're not showing their headlights flashing, they're doing the other thing flashing.
Yeah, if you want the epitome of stuff from our childhoods that you understand so differently when you grow up, go watch the first Shrek again.
The first Shrek.
The Shrek movie has it has a lot of stuff in it.
Okay, I would definitely say Shrek is probably one of the movies that would have one of the most adult.
Yeah,
I feel like I've heard of conversation going on where Shrek was supposed to be intended for adults with all the adult references.
Yeah.
When it came out at the time, it was just for kids. But
yeah,
I like how it is now because it's one of those where you can look back on it and be you could laugh on just the jokes that you've missed as a kid.
Yeah, Shrek has very much transcended some of its original appeal, and it has achieved meme/running joke status on the internet.
Absolutely.
For anybody who has ever heard the words Shrek is love, Shrek is life, you know what I'm talking about. And for anybody who hasn't heard those words, especially if you're underage, please don't look that up. if you're really curious, go and look it up. But if you're under the age of 18, I'd recommend not looking that up. It's just the kind of thing that's better served when you have an understanding of there's adult stuff on the internet sometimes.
One thing I would recommend about that is, yes, don't search it up. There was a music video, I think, that came out at the time where it was called Shrek Anthem. And it was a music video where I can't remember because it was so long ago, but essentially it had kind of just the model of Shrek is love, Shrek is life, and the music video is... I still remember the song in my head. It was beautiful.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I would definitely listen to Tom, as he says, where you kind of want to keep to be ignorant.
Yeah,
and
there's
not explore.
There's a lot of stuff out there on the internet that's completely mundane, completely safe, doesn't have any risque or adult stuff in it. But when it comes to Shrek, a very irreverent movie that includes a couple of dick jokes in the dialogue and stuff like that, there's gonna be some more adult stuff out there sometimes when it comes to Shrek on the internet. God, the 2000s were a weird time in our culture, for being honest.
It makes me think just how the times have changed, just from movies that we've seen then versus movies now.
When you and I were little kids, we didn't have as many big mega franchises. I was born in 2002. The MCU started in 2008 with Iron Man. I remember a little bit of what what media and stuff was like before everything had to be a franchise. Of course, that movie came out when I was 6, and I don't think I properly saw it for a couple years. But yeah, it's everything back then was so much simpler. That was when it's the 90s to about 2010 was the internet age. The 2010s have been the social media age. Where that's where a lot of the modern, stuff has come in. Back in my day, like all the old people say, there are times as a 22-year-old senior in college where I look back and I'm like, wow, I remember this thing from my childhood. I feel so old.
Moments like that. Oh my god. I feel like it's enjoyable because you just have stuff like that happens like occasionally. And you're just like, wow, I'm glad that happened. It's just one of those moments where like you kind of just wish to recreate it just as many times as you want.
Yeah, nostalgia is a powerful thing.
Absolutely.
We think about, the times when things were different. A lot of people talk about it like, oh, I remember being a kid when I didn't have to worry about all this adult stuff.
You didn't have like responsibilities and stuff.
I didn't have to worry about school and bills and taxes and the fact that I'm gonna die someday.
I think like our main concern was just waking up for school and making sure we get good grades so that way our parents don't like ground us or do anything with us.
Yeah. Although I will say, like, if I got the chance to go back and be a kid again or something, I don't know if I'd want it, if I'm being honest. Because, like, I enjoy, like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff about adult life that is not fun, but I enjoy having the freedom to do more things now.
It's one of the big things with adults where it really depends on, like, how you go at it with freedom. Like, you can either make it a great thing and live independently as your own, or, if you don't maintain it, or if you're not careful with the responsibilities that come with it, then, you can get into some trouble. But, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. In terms of, like, I know other media that I remember from my younger years. Ooh, something that still holds up today, I think. Have you heard of a movie called The Sandlot?
I have not.
All right, that was my favorite movie when I was a kid. It's about a kid who, is trying to fit in the new town he moves to. There's this group of neighborhood kids who all play baseball together, and they're over the summer getting into some misadventures. Trying to get back a baseball from let's say a beast. It's
Beast.
Of course. I mean, they call it the beast. It's like, oh no, every ball that goes over the fence in the back of the field, we can never get it back because the thing back there, it's like, it's so dangerous. We can't go back there to get all the baseballs. It's very much like, young kids, like, like a neighborhood urban legend kind of thing, that only like a young kid could come up with.
Yeah, just that classic.
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, it was it still feels weird, honestly, being in college, being able to look back at, our younger selves and just noticing how much things have changed in, like, not in 20 years, not even 20 years,
I mean, it is. Like, one of the biggest things I've been doing right now is kind of just looking at, like, the YouTubers I used to watch back then. Because, like, when I was a kid, I watched a variety of things. It was, like, just stuff about gaming, or just stuff about, like, the gaming YouTubers, or kind of just, like, those commentary channels where they would just, just talk about, like, controversy happening just either on YouTube or just in the world. But, yeah, I would just mostly watch just, like, Roblox and, like, Minecraft, like, YouTubers.
Yeah.
Just because, I don't know. At the time, it was obviously fun, just because you could have a chance to play with them, get famous from doing that type of stuff. I remember there was one Roblox YouTuber I was like very much into, where I think I like I commented under like one of his video, and my like comment ended up like blowing up, and like I was just in euphoria. I felt so famous because like my comment blew up.
Yeah.
And I think it got noticed by the YouTuber, and I was like, oh my gosh, my life is complete. I can just
the things that mattered to us as kids.
Seriously.
This random person on the internet noticed me. I have succeeded at life.
Just times like that, you just felt like that was, your gold. Like, just your very, like, end goal accomplishment, where once you get it, everything's complete. Life is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thinking back on those days where, we draw so much of our, like, positive memories from, it's like, it's important to hold on to that stuff. It's like, we remember the past, and we try not to dwell on it too much, because, like, we've got the present, and that's all we've got. Until we invent time travel, of course.
That's true.
Which may or may not be like Back to the Future.
I mean, who knows? There could be a possibility.
Who knows?
There could be a time traveler living, in our year right now, but we never know.
If I invent time travel, then the first place that I will come back to, or if someone else invents it, will be 5 seconds from right now, right here in this room.
Oh man, like, once we come back to that time, you just...
It's been 5 seconds and nothing has appeared. Therefore, I do not invent time travel in the future.
Exactly. Thinking it that way, yeah.
Yeah. Or it might be that this timeline is when it's like every time you travel, the fact that you travel through time splits it. So there's an as suggested by physics, and stuff like that. There's probably an alternate timeline where, I did come back, and there is a time traveling version of me standing here in our dorm room, but we wouldn't see it here because that's not how physics works.
Exactly. You never know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. All right. You got any more stuff to add about like nostalgia and media, that kind of stuff, before we move on to our last topic?
I guess one thing I would add is it's very nice looking back on the old shows that you used to watch as a kid. But, of course, spending too much time on it can, leave you sad and kind of just wanting to, like, think about the times that you come back. But it's better to think about, you have the present with you, and then you have the future ahead.
Mm-hmm. So,
better just to plan ahead and, look back on those times and think of, like, it's glad that, you've had those times to experience it.
Yep.
It couldn't have been any better because, it could have been different. So it's at least good that you've experienced those.
Yeah. I think I'm in a similar spot, remember the past, look back on it fondly, but, it's already happened.
Exactly.
So dwelling on it doesn't, it doesn't bring us much.
It's not going to bring the times back, so.
Yeah. So yeah, appreciate your life, everybody. And if you can't appreciate your life, then I hope it gets better, because we're all going to be dead.
You only live once.
Eventually, you only live once. Alrighty. So then our last topic, we're both kind of interested in science, technology, that kind of stuff. That's outside my wheelhouse because, I'm majoring in creative writing, but I still find a lot of, science and tech stuff cool, but you're more in that area. Remind me, what's your major again?
Yeah, my major currently right now is systems engineering. So yeah, we would go into, starting with the topics of chemistry and then like branching on with like incorporating like physics so that way you have like thermodynamics on how, you know, science interacts with certain devices that we see like every day.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay.
I feel like science is one of those subjects in school where like it was probably my second favorite because the type of student I feel like I was I feel like I was that typical smart student, even though how I would describe it is just I genuinely just loved math and science. I found like I found the comprehensive like math and like science books that like you would take in like I think college. It was like the basic college element, and I think I found those when I was like 6 years old, and I was just like, hey, I might as well do this. So then it was one of those things where like I kept doing it, and I thought, hey, this is cool. So then I just kept doing it to the point where like I grew fond of it, and it was just one of those things where I just got naturally good at it just because I just loved doing it. And with science, it was also like one of those things where because it was really hands-on with like experiments and stuff, example with chemistry, you can, test it in like day-to-day life. Like I remember with like the periodic table, I would try memorizing like half of it in like once I took it my junior year of high school. But yeah, it's just even then like with the classes I'm taking now, we still incorporate like some of the like science stuff that we've learned with like still like using the periodic table.
Yeah.
And just science stuff.
Yeah. So in case I didn't make it clear, our topic is kind of like the state of science, and particularly about AI, because that's a big discussion that's going on right now. So, yeah, I guess, like I said, I've always found science cool. Part of me, I'm kind of surprised that I didn't go into, like, something math or science related, just because I found it so interesting as a kid. Like, I remember I had a book on the solar system, that wasn't, like, it wasn't super complex, but it was, like, appropriate for a kid, to read. And I remember when Pluto got downgraded from a planet to a dwarf planet.
It was considered.
I read the book again, and I'm like, wait, that's wrong.
I remember there was like events in like my middle school where it was called like Scholastic something.
Oh yeah,
the Scholastic Book Fair.
Yes,
I remember
those were awesome.
Yeah, during those times when like you would go in, check it out with like when you had like break of class and you would see like the fucking Minecraft like text guides come out, or like those personal diaries ones that you came out of. There's so many of them.
Yeah.
But one of them I think I found was like, as you mentioned, it was like it was related to like astronomy with like how you can like gauge the constellations. It was also one of the like Scholastic book that like came with like an item, so it was on more the expensive side. I like begged my mom to see if I could get this. And then, like, I remember I had to, like, go full try hard in school, try to get every single A within, like, my report card. And I think I remember I got it once. And, of course, it was, like, a little, like, I think, like, tiny, like, telescope thing where, like, it would only zoom in, like, fucking, like, 10 feet in front of you or whatever. Man. So, yeah, it wasn't the best of quality, but there was a lot of information that I've learned with, like, how you can like see the constellations with stuff like how you can easily see like the dippers or like what the stars are called, like the constellations with like Ursa and Major and Minor and just that generic stuff.
Yeah, when I was little, looking up up at the night sky. I was like, they told me I could see shapes, but I don't see any shapes. It's like you have to be able to pick out like specific spots, and also it's hard to see because, all the shapes that we have, like humans came up with those, we ascribed those images to something in nature, and I think science I think science today, honestly, like we're starting to understand more like, okay, nature, exists like independent of us, like, and we're the ones who put all of our like emphasis and ideas onto it because that's like a natural instinct of humanity. It's like I think especially nowadays with technology, like I said, talking about AI, it's like all of this stuff is happening around us, and it's like, we shouldn't take it lightly because these developments could shape like people's lives going forward.
They really can. Like with the recent edition of ChatGPT, like over the years, like it makes me think of like it makes me think of like how would I be doing right now if I didn't have that at like my disposal right now, where like back then where we had to like rely within like textbooks and with the teacher's instructions, but now you can, if you want to like search up something, where you can go on ChatGPT and like search it up. But yeah, I feel like with the incorporation of AI, it's both good and bad. But I would say it's mostly good because it advances our technology and it kind of, raises civilization to the point of where, like, how we were back then thinking about, hey, maybe in the future we'll see, like, flying cars or, like...
That was always the thing.
Yeah, like, super subways or something, like bullet trains and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's like, I remember as a kid, I forget exactly what show it was, but it was just very much capturing the thought of the little kids, like, I've been in the future for like 10 minutes. Where are the jetpacks? It's like, technology, it allows us to like, interact with things more differently. Like when we have a different resource that changes our ability to do a task, it's like society has now been made like a complete shift away from like something it was even 10 or 15 years ago. When you think about like the things that modern science has actually achieved, the fact that like we have like even just the fact that we understand what germs are, was like a huge development in human society. Seriously. For like thousands of years we struggled to really, come up with effective ways to fight diseases. Like we had some things that worked, but now that we have that, things are so much different, and it's like we're on the cusp of that right now with, artificial intelligence and, machine learning and algorithms, all that kind of stuff. The thing that I think most people our age will know about is like, chatbots like ChatGPT, and generators where you can put stuff in, you can have them create text or images or stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Go back to little kid us and be like, here's this thing, and we'd be amazed.
Yeah, we would just be in awe of just what it is. But
yeah. I remember, when I was little, like looking at the desktop computer that we had at home, and I had just a vague sense of like, okay, it connects to something somewhere, and I know what this Google thing is, but like who owns Google? What is Google? Where did that come from? And now having that, here nowadays, I imagine like, my little younger cousins might be having that when they get a little older, with like AI, ChatGPT, stuff like that. They'll grow up and be like, oh, I don't have to search stuff up. I can just ask this robot about it.
Yeah, that's true. It kind of makes me think whether, if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Where I guess you can kind of see it as both ways, just depending on, from your perspective. But yeah, it's kind of interesting just going along with kind of just how it is.
Yeah. It's, the rate at which we're able to, communicate and, process and deliver information has just skyrocketed in the past, several years. We're more connected. Everyone, you hear it all the time, we're more connected these days than we've ever been before.
We are.
It makes you think, what are the consequences of that? People, people of, especially younger kids, our ages and younger, we're spending more and more time online, doing more stuff like that, and with AI bringing in a huge element of convenience into it, it makes you wonder, will there still be, times where okay, kid, go play outside. It's nice out today. Go play outside with your friends. But Mom, I want to stay inside and I don't know, and talk to this robot.
Talk to the robot, or I want to go inside and talk to.
I want to message my
bot or
whatever. I want to message my friends. I remember when I was young, it was I want to play video games. And I bet that's gonna stick around for a while. There'll always be kids I want to play video games. I don't want to go outside. But nowadays it's all of those same reactions and stuff that we had as kids are, they're still happening. They're just happening in different ways. And it makes you think how will the kids of today react when they're our age and they're seeing it with the next generation.
Yeah. It's kind of how will they think and kind of just, what they do when they turn into teenagers and then they look back at their moments where they feel nostalgic too, when it's when they feel nostalgic to stuff that could be happening right now as we speak, where it's kind of just interesting just thinking how wide of the topic where you can think. I don't know.
Yeah. Every generation has those big moments, they have the cultural shifts that they remember, It's there's questions from, back in the day, where were you when Kennedy was shot? Where were you on 9/11? I feel I don't know, I think the version of that for people our age, maybe in the US, is where were you, what were you doing during COVID?
That's definitely one.
Yeah, it's every group has their big moments that they remember. And I think the rise of, more automation and AI and stuff like that is going to be a huge cultural moment for the Gen Alpha kids.
Oh yeah.
Because they'll be the first generation coming up where all of that stuff is already established.
True.
It's millennials, millennials remember some of this of what life was like before the internet, but us Gen Z kids, we always had it in some form.
Pretty much. Yeah. And then now with Gen Alpha, it's already exposed to them, so it's kind of just interesting to think, how they'll use it or how they see it. And it could either be a good thing or it could be I won't say a bad thing, but I will say definitely something that will be memorable.
Yeah. I've got to ask, what's your opinion on people saying that AI is the death of modern art and stuff like that.
I guess with that, I don't really know, I guess, too much within the topic. It's more of, I've seen how, like, when people say, like, they make art, but you can kind of see how it's, like, AI generated. And it kind of, like, goes into, like, the line of what's actual art and then what's, an image generated by AI.
Yeah.
And I think with AI, like, you could do anything with what you want, but then, it's a completely something different when you take hours to, like, make a painting or make a drawing with, like, your own bare hands when you look, rather than when you're using, like, ChatGPT just to generate an image within seconds. But I see, like, a lot of controversy thinking, like, like, AI with image and the art was bad and it's killing, like, media artists and stuff. And honestly, I can kind of see how, because if you go with anywhere like that has, like, advertising, or even look on, like, YouTube with, like, ads, or just any sites with ads, you can see how some of them, like, use AI kind of just to promote their market, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, because that's kind of how the age we are now, where people are using that. But at the same time, it's like comparing it with people who actually take time with their art. I would kind of say it's unfair having to match those two, like, in terms.
Yeah.
So what I would say about that is take AI as your own, like, your opinion, and think of it as you want, but it's like AI and then, like, drawings created with, like, human wise, they're completely two different things, so it's better kind of just leave them separate. And
I think there is definitely something to be said for, like, what is the value of art, what do we call art. We think of, like, any art or any form of media, that there's effort that gets put into it, like someone spends their time creating this thing to be appreciated. They go through the steps of drawing and coloring something. On a book, you write various drafts. On a movie, you take all the time to lay out the steps of your production and then do it. But we're at the point where, like, images and, like, drawings and stuff, AI can produce that decently well. Videos are farther down the line, but we're getting to the point where, like, AI start producing rudimentary videos that someone can look at and be like, wait, an AI made that? And it's kind of freaky.
It's getting times to the point where, like, you can see a video and then, think of it, nothing of it as first. But then once you see, like, it's, like, AI generated, you're just like, how? And, like, the fact that you notice that, it completely looks nothing out of, like, the ordinary or anything. And then the fact that, something made that and it's not real, it kind of just makes you think, like, wow.
Yeah.
AI is getting to the point of, almost replicating.
Yeah.
Kind of just.
Yeah.
Not real, like, pictures and stuff.
Yeah. I think there's definitely something to be said for, like, the value of something that, took legitimate effort to create, that, like, there's more value in that than, just a piece of AI generated art. But I think I hold I think a slightly unpopular opinion in comparison to some more people, that, like, AI art is still art, Yeah. Like, ChatGPT or whatever image generator, someone types into, that's a tool in the same way that a brush is, if you're painting something, or, like, a pen, something like that. It's a tool you're using to help you create something. that just, that happens to be like, really like it's new emerging technology. I like AI art does not deserve to be discounted just because it's a relatively simple process for the human, but there is something to be said about a truly authentic work of art that somebody put a lot of effort into. Like we shouldn't, disregard, all of our great historical works of art and, things that, people put hundreds or thousands of hours into, or not, or even not very much time at all, because like, the way we recognize whether something is worthy of, praise and worthy of remembering and appreciating is the time we spend putting into it. That, like, all of those things that we have still deserve to be remembered and appreciated. AI art also deserves to be appreciated, but in a different way.
Absolutely.
We shouldn't write it off completely, but we should be aware that, like, this is a fundamentally different thing that, it's here in a different age.
I agree.
Yeah.
Like something just different from, a creation that's takes hours to do. Because, yes, yeah, it's AI, but at the same time, with AI, like, back within, like, years ago, we didn't even have that technology. So even then, with, like, creating, like, simple images with AI, it's still kind of just, art that we would have never seen, like, how it's created, like, within, like, back then, like, say, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Because it's still, like, kind of just interesting to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do agree with how you say, like, it's completely on, like, a different, like, subject with, like, hand creations that takes hours to put in.
Yeah.
But
if there's something where I think I'm definitely more in line with the, more popular opinion, is definitely that, like, companies, especially in media, using AI as a way to circumvent, like, the human element of their work, that is, like, that's bad. That's a shitty business practice,
Oh yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, stuff like people, like artists deserve to be, compensated for their work, and, they deserve opportunities to be able to present themselves and the effort they can put into things.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if you can have something, created by a human versus created by an AI, I'd take, like, if I'm trying to make, some kind of media thing, I'd take the thing created by the human, and like 99 out of like 10,000 cases, whatever, unless the AI, the fact that the art was created by the AI, like, specifically serves the thing I'm making somehow. It's like the reason we have people who, like, get hired, by companies to work and create stuff is so that their work can be used and appreciated. And if you just go and replace all of someone's contributions with a thing from an AI, it's like that's not a good practice. You're not valuing the people.
No, it's doing the opposite, actually. It's kind of just throwing away their work.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it says that your effort, your contributions don't matter, which is like, no. There's a reason that we preserve art and we teach people how to make it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would agree, because it sometimes gets to the point where I've seen, like, some people online have, like, created with, like, their genuine, like, art where they take time, and then I see, like, comments within there being like, oh, this is like this has been created by AI,
my God.
or like this is definitely AI slop or something like that. And it's sad seeing that times, because
it's
now it's getting to the point of, like, AI can, get to that point where it's kind of hard differentiating between what's real art and then what's generated.
Yeah. It's like if people see any little inconsistencies or flaws in something, it must be AI, and it's like, no.
Yeah, it gets to the points where I think I see, like, if you go to, like, I don't know, like, super bad, like, animations, or not even animations, like, just, like, bad things that would just happen, or just weird occurrences. You would see, like, one comment that would say, is this created by, AI or something? Where, like, and you just think, like, what?
Yeah,
what do you mean?
What? Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, there's so much discussion and talk around AI and what it's going to do to modern art and all, and and everything. Yeah, it's a disaster. We gotta stop the AI now. All that kind of stuff. But it's like, we got so inundated with that in such a short time that now it's like, even like just a couple years into the big, cultural movement of that, people are really sensitive to, like, oh, there's a tiny flaw in this drawing, it's AI. Oh, there's a tiny flaw in this image, it must be AI. Yeah. Like,
it's so sad to see.
Yeah. Because, like, there's a lot of aesthetic and, like, cultural value in a lot of different things, and it just, like, seeing that someone put in a lot of effort only for someone to be like, oh, you're not a literal master at this, so it must be a computer. I'm like, come on, give them a little more credit than that, guys.
You see one tiny mistake that literally is a human error, and you're just like, nope. Robot, absolutely, just trash. Can't.
What would those people say if they saw, like, I don't know, the David statue by Michelangelo? If they saw a picture of that, like, do you know the effort that had to go into this? He didn't magically just carve it in a day.
Exactly.
He had to spend a lot of time on it, including the wiener, because everybody knows that, like, so many statues, especially like that, you have to show their genitals for some reason. But I mean, like,
that's how it is. But
yeah. We are enamored with the human form in various ways, and sometimes when you're looking at a picture of a human and you can tell that, hey, hold on, they have, like, an extra finger growing out of their hand. That is the kind of stuff you can easily tell. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. But
yeah.
I see your point, though.
Yeah, it's like, AI is one of those big cultural shifts that we'll adapt to over time. It's probably something you and I are going to be seeing over the course of our lives. Like, by the time, like TV was a huge shift in entertainment and media. Radio was a huge shift before that. By the time you and I were, like, growing up, TV was already, like, a common cultural thing that, like, everybody had. We're seeing the next step of that in real time. And it's going to be really interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, how it progresses, like, in the future.
Yeah. Alright, then I think that brings us mostly to the end of our discussion. Do you have anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
Shoot. Honestly, I don't have anything else to add.
Alright. Then, yeah, this has been a really good discussion. I've been meaning to get back to just talking to more people about stuff because, one of the reasons I made this show, really the key reason is, like, I know a lot of people who have a lot of knowledge and a lot of experiences that, like, I just want to get a sense of, like, what the world is like.
Just
if
perspective.
if I'm glancing out my window to see it, it's like, what perspectives does, like, someone else have who I, like, interact with on a daily basis? So, getting the chance to sit down and do stuff like this is, like, I appreciate it, Yeah. So, anyways, this has been another episode of Spill the Spiel. Thanks, Arthur, for agreeing to this.
Of course. Thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah.
Very grateful.
Yeah. And I will be coming out with some more videos in the next few months. Hopefully another episode or two of this. I've also got some gameplay stuff, that I've been uploading on my channel backed up. So there will be some of that too. But yeah, things are looking good. So anyways, this has been Tom from the Orange Jungle Tree Sheep. Arthur, of course. And I hope you guys have a good day. Goodbye.
Bye.